If you clicked on this video, there's a good chance you're wondering a few big questions. Like, why is Palantir's stock doing so well right now, even though it has such a high price-to-earnings ratio? Is it actually worth investing in? Or maybe you've heard that Palantir worked with ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. What exactly did they do there, and why has it caused so much backlash? Or maybe you've come across something about racial discrimination allegations against the company. What happened? Was it proven? Was there a lawsuit? Palantir is a name that stirs up a lot of conversation, but not always for reasons people understand. And that's what we're going to break down today. Not just the controversies, but what the company actually is, what it really does, and how it grew into one of the most powerful and secretive tech companies on the planet. But before we get to all that, let's actually answer the most basic question. So what does Palantir do? In the simplest terms, Palantir is a software company, but not in the way you might think. They don't make social media apps or video platforms. Instead, they build software that helps governments, militaries, and massive corporations organize and understand their data. Imagine an intelligence analyst or a corporate executive sitting in front of a giant, messy pile of information: spreadsheets, reports, surveillance footage, supply chain data. Palantir gives them a tool that pulls all of that together, finds patterns, and helps them make decisions. It's like a supercharged control room for decision-making. They don't just hand you a dashboard, they build platforms that let people run simulations, map out threats, respond to crises, or uncover financial fraud. It's serious, high-level stuff. Palantir has three main products that make all of this possible. The first one is called Gotham, and it's mostly used by intelligence agencies and military forces. This is the tool they use to track terrorist networks, analyze threats on the battlefield, and coordinate large-scale investigations. Then there's Foundry. That one's more for the private sector, corporations, pharmaceutical companies, manufacturing firms. Foundry helps these businesses optimize how they operate, manage risk, and respond quickly to changes in the market or their supply chains. The third product is Apollo. Now, Apollo is what allows the other two products to actually function in extreme environments, places where you don't have a normal internet connection like war zones or classified networks. It's the behind-the-scenes engine. The contracts they've landed over the years are massive. For example, they've signed a $250 million deal with the U.S. Army to help make battlefield decisions. They've worked with the CDC to analyze health data during the pandemic. They've secured a long-term agreement with the UK's NHS to modernize their data systems. And they've maintained high-level contracts with immigration enforcement agencies and foreign governments, like Israel's Ministry of Defense. These aren't short-term consulting jobs. These are deeply embedded relationships that span years and involve enormous amounts of trust and data. All right, now that we know what Palantir does and who it works with, let's go back to those questions we started with. Because Palantir hasn't just made headlines for its software, it's faced serious controversy along the way. Let's start with the stock. Why is Palantir's stock doing so well when financially it doesn't look like a traditional winner? The company has a high price-to-earnings ratio, which usually suggests overvaluation. But investors don't see it that way. They're betting on the future. Palantir has positioned itself at the intersection of defense, AI, and big data. That's a powerful mix in today's world. And many people believe that their role in both national security and enterprise technology is only going to get bigger. Now let's talk about ICE. Back in the 2010s, Palantir began working with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Their software, tools like Falcon and something called investigative case management, was used to analyze data, track individuals, and help ICE carry out investigations. During the Trump administration, especially during the zero-tolerance policy, critics claimed that Palantir's tools were being used to enforce harsh immigration crackdowns, including mass deportations and family separations. Palantir has responded by saying their tools were meant for criminal investigations, not civil deportation enforcement. But internal documents suggest there was more overlap than they've admitted. For many critics, this partnership became a symbol of tech companies enabling controversial government actions. And then there's the racial discrimination case. In 2016, the U.S. Department of Labor sued Palantir, accusing them of discriminating against Asian applicants for technical positions. According to the lawsuit, Asian candidates were being disproportionately rejected, even when they were highly qualified. The case didn't go to trial. In 2017, Palantir settled, agreeing to pay $1.7 million in back wages and to extend job offers to affected applicants. The company denied any wrongdoing, but the settlement raised real questions about diversity and inclusion inside the organization. So here we are, with a company that builds world-class software, works with the most powerful governments in the world, and yet constantly finds itself at the center of major ethical debates. How did we even get here? Let's rewind a bit and look at how Palantir began. Palantir was founded back in 2003, during the post-9/11 years when national security was a top priority. One of the key founders was Peter Thiel. You might know him as a co-founder of PayPal. He had this idea: what if you could take the fraud detection systems they built at PayPal and use them to catch terrorists? That idea turned into Palantir. Alongside Thiel was a team of engineers and thinkers, including a guy named Alex Karp, who would eventually become the face of the company. They got early funding from In-Q-Tel, which is basically the venture capital arm of the CIA. Right from the beginning, Palantir had close ties with the US intelligence community. But things weren't easy. Government agencies were slow to adopt new tech, and Palantir struggled to get its foot in the door. That changed when the US military started using their tools in Iraq and Afghanistan to track threats and gather intelligence. The software worked, and that gave Palantir the credibility it needed. From there, the company grew fast. It expanded across the federal government, then into international partners, and finally into the private sector. In 2020, Palantir went public, and ever since then, it's been a magnet for retail investors and big institutions alike. Now, let's talk about Alex Karp, the CEO. Karp is not your typical tech founder. He has a PhD in philosophy, he meditates, he lives in rural New Hampshire, and he's deeply skeptical of Silicon Valley's culture. But he's also extremely outspoken. He believes that Palantir has a moral obligation to work with Western governments, even when it's controversial. In his view, if Palantir doesn't help democratic nations defend themselves, then other companies will step in and help authoritarian ones instead. This philosophy has shaped Palantir's entire public identity. It's a company that embraces working with the military, that takes sides in global conflicts, and that's unapologetic about the role it plays. So let's come full circle. Why is Palantir stock booming? Because investors believe this company is building something essential: software that's going to power military strategy, global logistics, and artificial intelligence in the future. What happened with ICEE? Palantir software was used to track undocumented immigrants during a politically charged time, and critics say it played a direct role in harmful policies. And what about the discrimination lawsuit? Yes, the US government sued them, and yes, they settled by paying over $1 million and offering jobs to the applicants they'd unfairly rejected. Palantir is not just a tech company. It's a symbol of something bigger, about how data and power are shaping the world we live in. Whether you see them as defenders of democracy or enablers of state control, one thing's for sure: Palantir is a company we'll be hearing about for years to come. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments, what do you think about Palantir? Until next time.